They called me a burden, said I should be grateful they let me stay in my own house. I ate their dinner scraps while they ordered steaks. But the night I won $63 million, they started calling me Mommy Dearest. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. My name is Barbara Sullivan. I'm 72 years old, and I'm about to tell you a story that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Before we start, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you. This all started 3 years ago when my husband George passed away. We'd been married for 48 years. He was a factory supervisor, worked his whole life at the same plant. We raised 3 children, Michael, Jennifer, and David. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We paid off our mortgage, helped the kids through college, and saved what we could. When George died, everything changed overnight. His pension ended with him. I was left with my Social Security, exactly $917 a month. The house was paid off, thank God, but property taxes, utilities, insurance, groceries, it all added up fast. I'd worked part-time as a school secretary for years, but that pension was tiny. Together, I was living on about $1,400 a month. I thought my children would understand. I thought they'd help me figure it out. Instead, Michael showed up 2 weeks after the funeral with his wife, Tiffany, and a proposal. They'd been renting an apartment for years, struggling to save for a house. He suggested they move into my 4-bedroom home. "Just temporarily, Mom. We'll help with expenses. You won't have to worry about anything." I was lonely. The house felt enormous without George. Having family around seemed like a blessing. I said yes immediately. Looking back now, I can see how naive I was. How desperately I wanted to believe my own son had my best interests at heart. They moved in that spring. Michael and Tiffany took the master bedroom. My bedroom, the one I'd shared with George for 30 years. They said the bigger closet made more sense for them since they both worked and needed professional clothes. I moved into the smallest bedroom at the end of the hall, the room that used to be David's childhood bedroom, still with the blue wallpaper he'd picked out when he was 9. At first, things seemed fine. Michael worked in pharmaceutical sales, made good money. Tiffany was a dental hygienist. They'd come home with shopping bags, talking about their days. I'd cook dinner, trying to contribute however I could. They'd eat, leave their dishes on the table, and disappear into their room or go out with friends. The first argument happened 2 months in. I'd used some ground beef from the refrigerator to make meatloaf. Tiffany came home and exploded. That beef was expensive, grass-fed, organic. She'd bought it for a special recipe. I'd ruined her plans. I apologized, offered to replace it, but $900 a month doesn't leave room for $20 a pound ground beef. She rolled her eyes and said, "Just ask before you touch our food, Barbara." Our food, in my own house. That should have been my first warning sign. The food situation became a problem faster than I could have imagined. Within 3 months of Michael and Tiffany moving in, the refrigerator became divided territory. They started bringing home groceries and putting them on specific shelves. The good stuff, fresh berries, imported cheeses, organic vegetables, premium cuts of meat, went on the top shelves. My groceries, when I could afford them, went on the bottom. Sometimes I'd buy a package of chicken thighs on sale, and it felt like a luxury. I started eating differently than them. They'd have salmon with asparagus and roasted potatoes. I'd make myself scrambled eggs or a can of soup. When they ordered takeout, which was 3 or 4 times a week, they never asked if I wanted anything. They'd spread everything out on the dining room table, and I'd eat cereal in the kitchen, trying not to watch. The worst part was the leftovers. After they finished eating, Tiffany would scrape half-eaten food into containers and stack them in the fridge. One night, I was hungry. I'd skipped lunch to save money. I saw a container with pasta and chicken, maybe 2 servings left. I heated it up. When Tiffany found the empty container the next morning, you'd think I'd stolen her jewelry. "That was Michael's lunch for work," she snapped. "He specifically saved that. Now he'll have to buy something, and we're trying to save money, Barbara." "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I didn't realize. I can make him a sandwich." "With what? Your dollar store bread? She laughed, actually laughed. Just stay out of our food. If there's something we're done with, I'll let you know. That became the new system. When they were finished with something, a quarter of a casserole, a few pieces of pizza that had been sitting out too long, the heels of a loaf of artisan bread, Tiffany would tell me I could have it. Like I was a dog waiting for table scraps. In my own home, in the house my husband and I had worked 30 years to pay off. I started shopping at discount grocery stores, buying whatever was marked down. Dented cans, day-old bread, bruised produce. I'd portion everything carefully, making meals stretch. Some nights, dinner was toast with butter and a cup of tea. I lost weight. My clothes hung loose. At my annual checkup, my doctor asked if I was eating enough. I'm fine, I lied. Just watching my figure. Jennifer visited once during this time. My daughter lived 2 hours away with her husband, Craig, and their 2 teenagers. She'd always been Daddy's little girl, and after George died, she barely called. When she did visit, she took one look at how Michael and Tiffany had taken over and said nothing. She had dinner with us. They made a big show of cooking something nice. When Jennifer was there, and then she left. She hugged me goodbye and whispered, "At least you're not alone, Mom." Alone. I'd never felt more alone in my life. I was surrounded by people in my own house, yet I was invisible. Worse than invisible. I was tolerated. An inconvenience they'd learned to work around. David, my youngest, was stationed overseas with the Marines. We emailed occasionally, but he had his own life, his own problems. I didn't want to burden him with mine. 6 months after they moved in, Jennifer and Craig announced they were struggling financially. Craig had been laid off from his job as an electrical engineer, and they were behind on their mortgage. Jennifer called me crying. She needed help. She needed family. Before I could process what was happening, they were packing up their house and moving into mine. My 3-bedroom house now held 7 people. Michael and Tiffany in the master. Jennifer and Craig in what used to be Jennifer's childhood room. Their 2 kids, Emma and Tyler, aged 15 and 13, in what used to be the guest room. And me, still in David's old room, now listening to teenagers argue through thin walls and watching my grocery budget get even tighter. The house became chaos. Jennifer and Craig didn't work. They were looking for opportunities and networking. What they actually did was sleep until 10, use all the hot water, leave messes everywhere, and act like they were doing me a favor by living there. The kids treated the place like a hotel. They ate everything in sight, left dishes piled in the sink, and never once thanked me when I cleaned up after them. The electric bill tripled. Everyone had laptops, phones charging constantly, TVs running all day. The water bill skyrocketed with 5 extra people showering, doing laundry, running the dishwasher. My carefully managed budget of $1,400 a month couldn't cover it. I started getting late payment notices. That's when Michael called the family meeting. Everyone gathered in the living room, my living room with my furniture and my house, and Michael stood up like he was running a board meeting. "We need to talk about finances," he said. "The utility bills are out of control. Mom, we know you're on a fixed income, but we're all contributing here. We need you to pay your fair share." My fair share. I stared at him. "Michael, I'm paying the property taxes, the insurance. I paid for the new hot water heater last month when the old one died." "And we appreciate that," Tiffany jumped in. "But we're talking about monthly expenses. We think everyone should contribute equally to utilities and groceries." "Equally?" My voice came out barely a whisper. "There are 7 people here. I'm one person. I eat maybe 1 meal a day. You want me to pay 1/7 of bills that are 10 times what they were when I lived alone?" Jennifer leaned forward. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We're family. We support each other. You're acting like we're taking advantage of you. Aren't you?" The words came out before I could stop them. The room went silent. Then Michael's face hardened. "You want to talk about taking advantage? We moved in to help you. You were alone. Struggling. We gave up our apartment, our independence to be here, and this is the gratitude we get? We're the ones supporting you," Tiffany added. "You'd be lost without us. Probably have to sell this house and move into some depressing senior apartment." I felt something break inside me. These were my children. The babies I'd raised, fed, clothed, sent to college, the ones I'd sacrificed for, worked extra shifts for, gone without so they could have more. And they were sitting in my living room telling me I should be grateful they'd taken over my home. The contribution they demanded was $300 a month. $300 out of my $900 Social Security check. That left me with $600 for everything else: food, medication, co-pays, clothing, anything that came up. I was already using the last of George's life insurance to cover property taxes. There was no room left to cut. I tried to explain this to them. I showed them my bank statements, my bills, my budget written out on notebook paper. Michael barely glanced at it. "You need to make it work, Mom. We all have expenses. Tiffany and I are saving for our own house. Jennifer and Craig need to get back on their feet. We can't carry the entire household." "This is my household," I said quietly, "and we're letting you stay in it," Tiffany shot back. Then she caught herself, softened her voice artificially. "What Michael means is, we're all in this together. Family helps family." I paid the $300 that month, and the next, and the next. I stopped taking my cholesterol medication because I couldn't afford both the pills and food. I started shopping exclusively at the dollar store. My diet became toast, eggs when they were on sale, rice, beans, whatever I could make stretch. I lost more weight. My hands started shaking from low blood sugar. I was hungry all the time. Meanwhile, they lived like royalty. Michael and Tiffany bought a new car, a luxury SUV with heated leather seats. They went out to expensive restaurants 3 times a week. Tiffany got her nails done every 2 weeks, her hair colored monthly. Jennifer bought the kids new phones, expensive sneakers, designer clothes. Craig joined a golf club. A golf club. When I asked Michael how they could afford all this while I was eating rice and beans, he got angry. "That's our business, Mom. We work hard. We deserve to enjoy our money. Just because you're on a fixed income doesn't mean we have to live like we are." "But you're living in my house," I said, "rent-free. You said you were struggling." "We are struggling. Do you know how expensive it is to maintain appearances in my industry? I need that car for client meetings. Tiffany needs to look professional. This is an investment in our future. Their future. Never our future. Never my future. Just theirs. I was a landlord they didn't have to pay, a maid they didn't have to hire, a convenience they'd learned to exploit while telling me I should be grateful. The final straw came on a Tuesday evening in November. I'd made myself dinner, a can of soup and 2 pieces of toast. I was eating at the kitchen counter because the family was having a taco night in the dining room. I could hear them laughing, talking, enjoying themselves. After they finished, I waited until everyone had left the kitchen, then went to clean up. There were platters of leftover food, seasoned ground beef, shredded cheese, sour cream, guacamole, fresh salsa, enough for at least 2 more meals. I stood there, my stomach growling, looking at the food they'd leave to spoil before they'd offer me a plate. I reached for a tortilla, just one, and Tiffany walked back in. "Really, Barbara?" She crossed her arms. "You couldn't wait to be invited?" That's when I realized I wasn't family anymore. I was the help. I'd been buying lottery tickets for 40 years. Every Wednesday and Saturday, George and I would stop at the gas station on the way home from wherever we'd been. We'd pick our numbers together. Birthdays, anniversaries, the house number where we raised our kids. After he died, I kept up the tradition. It felt like keeping a piece of him alive. Even when money got tight, I'd scrape together $2 once a week. It was a Wednesday evening in January, bitter cold, when I walked to the corner gas station. Michael had just asked me for an additional $100 for household supplies, though I'd seen him unload cases of craft beer into the garage. I had $43 in my checking account until my Social Security came through the next week. I stood in the gas station, holding my last $2, wondering if I should buy the lottery ticket or save it for milk. I bought the ticket. I don't know why. maybe spite, maybe hope. Maybe I just needed to feel like I still had some control over my own life, even if it was just choosing my own numbers. I folded the ticket into my coat pocket and walked home through the freezing wind. Saturday morning, I was up at 5:30 like always. The house was quiet. Everyone else slept until at least 9 on weekends. I made myself tea with a used tea bag. I'd started reusing them to save money and turned on the small TV in the kitchen. The lottery drawing was on. I pulled the ticket from my coat pocket, barely paying attention. They called the first number. I had it. The second number. I had it. Third, fourth, fifth numbers. I had them all. Then the Powerball. My hands started shaking so badly I could barely hold the ticket. I checked it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. All 6 numbers matched perfectly. I'd won the jackpot. $63 million. $63 million. I sat in that kitchen chair, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to process what I was seeing. After 20 minutes of staring at the ticket, I stood up on shaking legs, went to my bedroom, and hid the ticket inside an old Bible that had been my mother's. Nobody in this house would ever think to look there. For 3 days, I said nothing. I watched them live their lives, spending money they didn't have, treating me like I was invisible. Tiffany complained about needing a vacation. Jennifer talked about remodeling her kitchen once they got their house back. Michael mentioned they might need my bedroom soon because Tiffany was thinking about starting a family, and they'd need a nursery. They were already planning to kick me out of my own house. They just hadn't told me yet. On the 4th day, Michael asked me again about money. "Mom, we need to talk about increasing your monthly contribution. Everything's getting more expensive. We think $400 a month is fair." I almost laughed. $400 out of $900. I'd have $500 a month to live on, less than $20 a day. I looked at my son, my firstborn, the baby I'd nursed, the toddler I'd rocked to sleep, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for, and I didn't recognize him. This wasn't the child I'd raised. This was a stranger wearing my son's face, a stranger who saw his mother as nothing but a resource to exploit. Everything changed the day after the lottery announced someone in our town had won the jackpot. The local news made a big deal about it, an unclaimed $63 million winning ticket, purchased at Miller's gas station on Elm Street. They interviewed the owner, showed the store on TV, created a whole frenzy about who the lucky winner might be. I watched the news with everyone else that evening, my face neutral while my heart pounded. Michael was speculating about what he'd do with that kind of money. Jennifer said she'd buy her kids everything they ever wanted. Tiffany pulled out her phone and started looking at houses in expensive neighborhoods. "Imagine if it was someone we knew," Craig laughed. "That would be insane." Nobody looked at me. Why would they? I was just the old woman eating leftovers in the corner, the burden, the charity case they tolerated. It never occurred to any of them that I might be the winner. But something shifted after that news broadcast. Suddenly, everyone became superstitious about being nice to people. "You never know who might be secretly rich," Tiffany said that night at dinner. She actually brought me a plate of food, an actual full plate, not leftovers. It was the first time in 6 months I'd been offered a proper meal in my own home. The next morning, Michael asked me how I was feeling. He hadn't asked me that in over a year. Jennifer called me Mommy instead of Mom, something she hadn't done since she was 7 years old. Craig offered to shovel the driveway. The kids actually said please and thank you. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more like it, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me continue making these videos for you. 2 weeks passed. The lottery winner still hadn't come forward. I'd called the lottery office from a payphone. Yes, I found an actual payphone at the library and asked about the claiming process. They told me I had 180 days to claim the prize. I could remain anonymous in our state. I'd need to set up a trust, bring a lawyer, do everything carefully. I wasn't ready yet. I was watching, learning, seeing who these people really were when they thought something might benefit them. The transformation was remarkable. Suddenly, I was Mommy Dearest. Jennifer started calling every day. She'd bring me coffee, ask about my health, talk about memories from when she was little. Michael started insisting I take the master bedroom back. "You're right, Mom. That's your room." We were being insensitive. Tiffany apologized for any misunderstandings about food. She bought me groceries, name-brand items, fresh produce, everything I'd been doing without. She'd cook elaborate meals and serve me first. "You deserve to be treated special," she'd say, her smile bright and empty. They stopped asking for money. In fact, Michael offered to give me money. "You shouldn't have to worry about expenses, Mom. We're family. We take care of each other." Craig got a job. Suddenly, miraculously, after 8 months of looking. Jennifer started cleaning the house without being asked. The kids became polite, helpful, considerate. They'd all transformed overnight into the loving, grateful family I'd once believed I had, and every single thing they did made me more certain of what I'd suspected from the beginning. None of it was real. Every smile, every mommy dearest, every act of sudden kindness, it was all calculated. They didn't know I was the lottery winner, but they'd become terrified that someone nearby was, and they wanted to hedge their bets. They were being nice to me, to everyone really, just in case. I tested them. One evening, I mentioned I'd been thinking about my will. I hadn't updated it since George died. Everything was split equally among the 3 kids, but I wondered if I should add the grandchildren, maybe donate something to charity. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Then Michael cleared his throat. "Mom, that's really thoughtful of you, but you don't need to worry about that now. You've got years ahead of you." "Decades," Jennifer added quickly. "You're only 72. That's young nowadays." "Still," I continued, "I want to make sure everything's in order. You never know what might happen. I was thinking about talking to a lawyer." "A lawyer?" Tiffany's voice went sharp before she caught herself. "I mean, that seems expensive, Barbara. We could help you do it online. There are websites." "I'd prefer a lawyer," I said, simply. That night, I heard them arguing in the master bedroom. The walls were thin. I heard Michael say something about making sure we're protected, and Tiffany responding with, "What if she changes everything?" Jennifer's voice came from the hallway. She must have been listening at their door, saying something about, "We've been taking care of her. We deserve consideration." They weren't worried about me. They were worried about their inheritance, an inheritance from a woman they'd been slowly starving in her own home, a woman they'd degraded, exploited, and treated like a burden. They didn't love me. They loved what they thought they'd get when I died. That's when I knew I had to act. I couldn't keep living this lie, watching them perform kindness while planning their futures around my death. I'd already scheduled an appointment with a lawyer, not for my will, not yet, but to claim my lottery winnings. The appointment was for Monday morning at 10. The weekend before that appointment was surreal. Jennifer took me out for brunch, actually paid for it herself. Michael and Tiffany announced they'd decided to move out by spring, give me my house back. "We've saved enough," Michael said. "You've been so generous letting us stay here. We want you to have your space back." Craig found a job in his field starting next month. Everything was working out. Everything was falling into place. They were finally becoming the family I'd always wanted them to be, except it was all built on a foundation of fear and greed, not love. Never love. Sunday night, I barely slept. I kept touching the lottery ticket hidden in my Bible, making sure it was still there. This piece of paper represented freedom, security, the ability to never be hungry again. But more than that, it represented truth. Once I claimed this ticket, I'd know exactly who everyone really was. The masks would come off. I'd see my children clearly, maybe for the first time in my life. Monday morning, I got dressed in my best outfit, a navy suit I'd worn to George's funeral. I told everyone I had a doctor's appointment. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? I was old, invisible, irrelevant. Just mommy dearest they needed to keep sweet until the mystery lottery winner revealed themselves. The law office was downtown, in a building I'd passed 1,000 times but never entered. Morrison and Associates. I'd chosen them carefully. They specialized in estate planning and lottery winners. I'd read everything I could find online at the library about claiming large lottery prizes. You needed to be strategic. One wrong move and everyone in your life would come crawling out of the woodwork with their hands out. Everyone already had their hands out. I was just making sure they'd never reach me again. The receptionist smiled warmly when I walked in. "Mrs. Sullivan, Mr. Morrison is expecting you." She led me to a corner office with a view of the downtown area. Robert Morrison was in his 50s, silver-haired, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He'd won his own lottery case years ago, defending a winner against predatory family members. I'd read about it in the news archives. "Mrs. Sullivan, please sit down. You said on the phone this was about a lottery claim?" I pulled the ticket from my purse with shaking hands and placed it on his desk. He examined it carefully, then looked up at me with something like wonder. "You're the Miller's gas station winner. The whole town's been looking for you." "I know," I said quietly. "I need help, not just claiming the money. I need to protect myself." Over the next 2 hours, I told him everything. The pension, the house, my children moving in, the food, the money they demanded, the way they'd treated me until the news broke about the lottery win, the sudden transformation into Mommy Dearest, the way they'd changed overnight, not because they loved me, but because they were afraid someone rich might cut them off. Mr. Morrison listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "Mrs. Sullivan, I've seen a lot of these cases. Money brings out the truth in people. What do you want to do?" "I want to claim the money anonymously. I want to set up a trust. I want to make sure my children never see a penny of it." My voice was steady, clear. I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. "You understand. This will likely destroy your relationship with them," he said gently. "Once they find out you're the winner and you've excluded them, there's no going back." "There's no relationship to destroy," I replied. "What we have now is a performance. They're acting like they care because they think it might benefit them. I want to see what happens when they realize it won't." He nodded slowly. "All right, let's start with claiming the ticket. You can set up a trust. We'll call it something generic. The trust claims the money, not you personally. Your name never goes public. Then we'll work on your estate planning. You can leave everything to charity, set up scholarships, do whatever you want. But Mrs. Sullivan, I need to ask, do you have any other family, anyone who genuinely cares about you?" I thought about David, stationed overseas. We'd lost touch over the years. He had his own life, his own family now. "I have a son in the Marines. We don't talk much anymore." "Would you want to include him?" I thought about it carefully. David had never asked me for anything. He'd left home at 18, made his own way, built his own life without expecting handouts or inheritance. Maybe. But I want to see who he really is first. I want to talk to him without him knowing about the money. It took 3 weeks to process everything. The Lottery Commission verified the ticket. The trust was established. The Sullivan Family Trust, deliberately vague sounding. Mr. Morrison handled everything while I continued my performance at home. I played the role of the poor, grateful mother, while my children continued their performance as loving family. The money hit the trust account on a Thursday, $63 million. After taxes and the lump sum reduction, it came to about $38 million. $38 million that my children knew nothing about. Mr. Morrison helped me make some immediate decisions. We set up a monthly income for me, $50,000 a month, more than I could ever spend. We established education funds for my grandchildren in a separate trust they couldn't touch until they were 25, and only if they went to college. We donated $5 million to veterans organizations in George's name. We set aside money for David, if he wanted it, in a separate account. And then I did something that Mr. Morrison tried to talk me out of. I went home and told them I was selling the house. "Selling?" Michael's face went white. "Mom, you can't sell. This is our family home." "Your family home?" I said quietly. You told me 3 days ago you were moving out in the spring, remember? You'd saved enough?" "We meant eventually," Tiffany stammered. "We didn't mean right away. Where would you even go?" "I'm moving into a senior living community, one of those nice ones with activities and meal plans. I've already put down a deposit." This was true. I'd toured 3 places and chosen the nicest one. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, beautiful views, social activities, security. It cost $4,000 a month, which would have been impossible before. Now it was nothing. "But what about us?" Jennifer's voice rose. "Craig just started his job here. The kids are in school. We can't just move out right now." "You'll figure it out," I said. "You're all adults. You'll do what you need to do." The next week was chaos. They scrambled, made calls, looked for apartments they couldn't afford. They begged me to reconsider. They reminded me of every sacrifice they'd made living here, every bill they'd helped with, every kindness they'd shown. "You were helping with bills?" I said to Michael during one of these conversations. "You paid $300 a month while living in a 4-bedroom house rent-free. I paid property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and gave you $300 on top of that. You didn't help with bills. You added to them." "Mom, don't be like this," Jennifer pleaded. "We're family. Family sticks together." "You're right," I said. "Family does stick together. Family doesn't treat each other like burdens. Family doesn't make their mother eat leftovers while they feast. Family doesn't demand money from someone living on $900 a month while they buy luxury cars and join golf clubs." "That's not fair," Craig started. "None of this was fair," I cut him off. "But it's over now. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. The house goes on the market February 1st. I watched their faces transform. The kindness melted away. The masks cracked and fell. Tiffany called me ungrateful. Jennifer called me selfish. Michael said I was a bitter old woman who'd die alone. They said everything I'd known they were thinking for the past year, but had been too calculating to say out loud. The day they moved out, I sat in my empty house and felt peace for the first time in 18 months. They'd taken everything they owned and left destruction behind, holes in walls, stains on carpets, broken cabinet doors. They'd destroyed my home on their way out. One final act of spite from children who'd forgotten I was a person deserving of respect. I hired contractors. The house was repaired, painted, staged beautifully. It sold in 3 days for $40,000 over asking price. I didn't need the money, but it felt like vindication. This house, the one they'd treated like their personal hotel, the one they'd planned to inherit and probably sell the day after my funeral, it was gone. Out of their reach forever. I moved into my senior living apartment the same week. 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for the craft room I'd always wanted. I joined the book club, started taking watercolor classes, made friends with people who didn't see me as a resource to exploit. For the first time in years, I ate 3 meals a day. I gained back the weight I'd lost. The shaking in my hands stopped. Mr. Morrison finished redoing my will. Everything, the trust, the investments, the remaining lottery money, was designated for charity. Veterans organizations, homeless shelters, food banks, scholarships for first-generation college students. My grandchildren's education funds remained separate, untouchable by their parents. They'd get good educations if they wanted them, but their parents would never see a dime. David came home on leave 2 months after everything happened. I'd reached out to him, asked him to visit. We sat in my new apartment and I told him everything. Not about the money, not yet, just about what had happened with his siblings, how they'd treated me, how they'd changed when they thought someone nearby had won the lottery, how they'd reacted when I sold the house. He cried. My 30-year-old Marine son sat in my living room and cried, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have called more. I should have known." "You were serving your country," I said gently. "You were building your own life. That's what I wanted for you. That's what parents are supposed to want for their children." I told him about the lottery then, about the money, about what I'd done with it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Did you set aside anything for me?" My heart stopped. This was the test, the moment I'd know if I had any children left who loved me for more than what I could give them. "I'm asking," he continued, "because I want to make sure you kept enough for yourself. You deserve to enjoy it, Mom. You deserve to travel, to live well, to have everything you never had. I don't want you giving it all away because you're angry. I want you to be happy." That's how I knew. That's how I knew I had one child who still saw me as a person, as his mother, as someone worthy of happiness rather than a source of future inheritance. Michael, Jennifer, and Tiffany never spoke to me again after they found out about the lottery. They're still angry. They still think I owe them something. But I'm 72 years old, living in a beautiful apartment surrounded by friends, eating well, sleeping peacefully, and I owe them nothing. Not anymore, not ever again.